The champagne flutes clinked beneath crystal chandeliers as Chicago's elite mingled through the Palmer House ballroom. Ethan Cole stood near the marble columns, still adjusting to the weight of a world he never expected to enter. Then he heard her voice, sharp, familiar, dripping with contempt. Jessica, his ex-wife, crossed the room, her eyes narrowing when she spotted him beside Clare Whitmore, the billionaire CEO in the elegant black gown. Jessica's lip curled into a smirk. Still playing the devoted single dad? How's that working out for you? Before Ethan could respond, Clare turned. Her hand slid down to Ethan's arm, pulling him close. "He's the best man I know," Clare said, her voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "And you just proved why you never deserved him." The room fell silent. But this moment didn't happen overnight. It started with a man who refused to give up, and a woman who finally saw what his ex-wife never could. 4 years earlier, Jessica Cole had placed her wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a soft click that echoed through Ethan's entire world. Their daughter Lily was 2 years old, sleeping in the nursery down the hall, blissfully unaware that her mother was walking out forever. Ethan remembered standing there, paralyzed, watching Jessica gather her purse and keys. "I can't do this anymore," she had said, not meeting his eyes. "I didn't sign up to be trapped in this life. The diapers, the sleepless nights, the endless routine. I need more than this, Ethan. I need freedom." He had begged her to stay. He promised they could work it out, go to counseling, hire help. But Jessica shook her head with a finality that left no room for hope. "You'll never be enough for anyone," she said as she walked through the door. "Not for me. Not for her." Those words had haunted him for 4 years. Now, at 37, Ethan had built his life around proving her wrong, not to her, but to himself and to Lily. Every morning began at 5:30. He would shower, dress, and start breakfast before his daughter woke. Today, it was scrambled eggs shaped into a smiley face, just the way Lily liked them. He added 2 strips of bacon for the eyebrows and a curved piece of toast for the smile. When Lily padded into the kitchen in her pink pajamas, her face lit up. "Daddy, you made the happy eggs again." Ethan smiled, the exhaustion in his bones momentarily forgotten. "Only the best for my best girl." He poured her a glass of orange juice and watched her eat with the satisfied feeling of a man who knew exactly what mattered in life. On the drive to school, Lily sat in her booster seat, watching the Chicago skyline pass through her window. The Willis Tower caught the morning light, gleaming like a beacon against the blue autumn sky. She was quiet for a while, which Ethan had learned usually meant a big question was coming. "Daddy?" she finally asked. "Why doesn't Mommy ever call on my birthday?" Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He had rehearsed answers to this question 100 times, but it never got easier. The pain in Lily's voice was a knife that twisted deeper each time she asked. "Sometimes, sweetheart, grown-ups make choices that are hard to explain. But I need you to know something." He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "I'm here, always, no matter what." Lily seemed to consider this, then nodded with the simple acceptance that only children possess. "Okay, Daddy. Can we get ice cream after school?" Ethan laughed, grateful for the redirect. "We'll see." He pulled into the school drop-off lane and watched Lily unbuckle herself with the practiced efficiency of a child who had learned independence early. She grabbed her backpack, then leaned forward to kiss his cheek. "Love you, Daddy. Love you more, Lily Bug." She rolled her eyes at the nickname but grinned anyway before disappearing through the school doors. Ethan sat there for a moment longer than necessary, watching until she was safely inside. It was a small ritual, one of thousands he had developed over the past 4 years. Small moments of making sure she knew she was never alone. At Whitmore Holdings, Ethan was known as one of the most reliable senior project managers in the company. He arrived early, prepared meticulous reports, and consistently delivered results that exceeded expectations. His colleagues respected him, though few knew the details of his personal life. Tom Brennan, his closest friend at work, was one of the exceptions. They had started at the company the same month, 7 years ago, and had navigated the corporate world together ever since. "You coming to happy hour tonight?" Tom asked, leaning against Ethan's cubicle. "The new bar on Michigan Avenue. Supposed to have great craft beers and this amazing rooftop view of the lake." Ethan shook his head without looking up from his computer. "Can't. Lily has a dance recital rehearsal. She's been practicing her butterfly dance for weeks." Tom sighed dramatically. "You know, they're talking about promoting someone to regional director. The job requires some travel, but the pay bump is significant. You should throw your hat in." Ethan finally looked at his friend. "I can't be away from Lily that much. She needs stability. She needs to know someone will always be there when she comes home." Tom opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and handed it to Ethan. "Saw this on Instagram. Thought you should know." On the screen was a photo of Jessica, radiant in a white sundress, posed on the deck of a yacht. The sunset behind her painted everything in shades of gold and coral. Beside her stood a man with silver-streaked hair and an expensive watch, Derek Holston, according to the caption. Jessica's smile was wide, performative. The caption read, "Finally, living the life I deserve." Ethan scrolled past without comment and handed the phone back. But Tom noticed his friend's jaw tighten, the slight tremor in his hand. Some wounds never fully healed. They just learned to hide beneath the surface, waiting for moments like these to remind you they were still there. 23 floors above where Ethan sat, Clare Whitmore reviewed the quarterly reports in her corner office. At 34, she had built Whitmore Holdings into a $2.3 billion real estate and investment empire. The business press called her brilliant. Her competitors called her ruthless. Her employees called her fair but demanding. None of them knew how lonely it was at the top. None of them saw her eating dinner alone at her desk most nights, or how her penthouse felt more like a hotel room than a home. Her assistant knocked and entered. "Miss Whitmore, Ethan Cole from Project Development has requested to leave 30 minutes early today. His daughter is ill." Claire looked up from her papers. "Approved. And send flowers to his daughter from the company. Something cheerful. Sunflowers, maybe. Children like sunflowers." The assistant nodded, clearly surprised by the personal touch. Clare Whitmore rarely involved herself in such matters. After her assistant left, Claire found herself staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Chicago skyline. She remembered the first time she had noticed Ethan Cole 3 months ago, in the building lobby. He had been on the phone, speaking to what she later learned was his daughter's teacher. His voice was calm but concerned, asking about a playground incident, reassuring the teacher that he would handle it, promising to have a conversation with Lily about sharing. What struck Claire wasn't the call itself. It was what happened after. Ethan had hung up, taken a breath, and walked back to the elevator as if nothing had happened. No complaints to colleagues about the interruption. No visible frustration, just a man handling his responsibilities with quiet dignity. She had asked her assistant to pull his file that same day. The board meeting that afternoon was about a new $40 million development project on the near north side. Department heads presented their analyses, most padding their reports with corporate jargon and optimistic projections designed to avoid accountability. When Ethan's turn came, his presentation was refreshingly direct. Clear data, honest assessments of risks, practical solutions. Claire asked him a deliberately difficult question about market volatility and interest rate fluctuations. Most employees would have deflected or offered vague reassurances. Ethan met her eyes and gave a straightforward answer that acknowledged the uncertainty while outlining contingency plans. He didn't try to impress her. He simply told the truth. After the meeting, Claire called her assistant in. "Tell me more about Ethan Cole." The assistant checked her notes. Single father. Wife left 4 years ago. He raises his daughter alone. Never missed a deadline. Never requested special treatment. Never complained about anything, even when he had to work late during the Peterson merger. That evening, Claire drove to her mother's house in Wilmette. Margaret Whitmore was 62, with silver hair and hands weathered from decades of hard work. She was tending her rose garden when Claire arrived, kneeling in the dirt despite the chill in the air. "You look tired," Margaret said, not looking up from her pruning. Board meeting. Claire sat on the garden bench, watching her mother work with the same determination she brought to everything. "Mom, do you ever think about Dad?" Margaret paused, then resumed cutting. "Sometimes. Usually when I see men who remind me of what he wasn't." She straightened and looked at her daughter with eyes that had seen too much disappointment but still held hope. "Why do you ask?" Claire considered how to answer. "I met someone at work, a single father. He reminds me of you, actually, someone who stays." Margaret set down her shears and joined Claire on the bench. "Your father left us with nothing when you were 5. I worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. 3rd shift at the hospital, then cleaning offices in the morning before you woke up. But we survived because I refused to give up on you." She took Claire's hand. "If you've found someone who doesn't run when things get hard, pay attention. People like that are rare." The encounter happened on a Saturday that Claire would later describe as fate, though she didn't believe in such things. She had been running along the lakefront trail near Millennium Park, trying to clear her head from a week of merger negotiations and board politics. The autumn air was crisp, the lake a deep blue beneath the October sky. She was rounding a bend near the Buckingham Fountain when a small figure darted into her path. Claire barely managed to stop before colliding with a little girl in a pink jacket who looked up at her with wide, startled eyes. Her sneakers were untied, and her pigtails had come loose on one side. "I'm so sorry," a man's voice called out, and Claire turned to see Ethan Cole jogging toward them, concern written across his face. "Lily, I told you to stay close." He reached them, slightly out of breath, and recognition flickered in his eyes. "Miss Whitmore, I apologize." She got excited when she saw the ducks. Claire looked down at the little girl, who was studying her with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. Lily had her father's brown eyes and a spray of freckles across her nose. "You're really pretty," Lily announced. "Are you a princess?" Something in Claire's chest loosened a knot she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. She laughed, a genuine sound that surprised even herself. "Just someone who runs too fast and doesn't watch where she's going." She knelt down to Lily's level, her designer running clothes getting grass-stained in the process, though she didn't seem to notice. "I'm Claire. What's your name?" "Lily. Like the flower." "Daddy says flowers are tough because they grow even when it's cold." Claire glanced up at Ethan, who looked mortified by the situation. He was wearing worn jeans and a faded Bears sweatshirt, a far cry from his office attire. Somehow, he looked more real this way, more himself. "It's fine," Claire assured him. "I could use a break anyway." She turned back to Lily. "So, Lily, like the flower, tell me about yourself. What's your favorite thing to do?" Lily launched into an enthusiastic monologue about her stuffed animals, her best friend Sophie at school, and how her daddy made the best pancakes in the whole world, special ones shaped like bears with chocolate chip eyes. She talked about her dance class and how she was learning to be a butterfly. Ethan stood by, a mixture of pride and embarrassment coloring his features. "She can talk for hours if you let her," he said apologetically. "We should let Miss Whitmore get back to her run." "Claire," she corrected. "Outside the office, please call me Claire." Lily tugged at Claire's sleeve. "Claire, do you have a daddy?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Claire paused, memories surfacing unbidden, a door closing, a car driving away, her mother crying in the kitchen when she thought Claire was asleep. "I did," she said quietly, "but he left when I was about your age." Lily's face scrunched with concern. "That's sad. Did you cry?" Claire nodded slowly. "I did. For a long time." Lily reached out and patted Claire's hand with the solemnity of a 6-year-old offering comfort. "That's okay. My daddy never leaves. Maybe you can borrow him sometimes." Ethan's face flushed red. Lily but Claire held up a hand, her eyes suddenly bright. "That's very kind of you, Lily. Your daddy is lucky to have someone looking out for him." She stood, brushing grass from her knees. "I should let you two get back to the ducks." As she jogged away, she couldn't resist one backward glance. Ethan was kneeling to tie Lily's shoelace, laughing at something his daughter had said. A man who never leaves, Claire thought. When was the last time she had met someone like that? While Claire was discovering something unexpected by the lake, Jessica Cole was discovering something unexpected in Derek Holston's penthouse. She had been living there for 8 months, planning a wedding that would cement her place in Chicago's high society. Derek had promised her everything: travel, luxury, freedom from the mundane domestic life she had fled. But that afternoon, while Derek was supposedly at a business lunch, Jessica found herself drawn to his home office. The door was usually locked, but today it stood slightly ajar. Inside, his laptop sat open on the desk. She told herself she was just looking for the wedding venue contracts. Instead, she found emails that made her blood run cold. Bank notices about overdue payments, margin calls on leveraged investments, a terse message from his accountant warning that without a significant cash infusion, his company would default on $8 million in debt within 3 months. Derek Holston wasn't the wealthy, successful businessman he presented to the world. He was drowning, and Jessica had climbed aboard a sinking ship. When Derek returned that evening, Jessica studied him with new eyes. The expensive watch, was it financed? The yacht in her Instagram photos, was it rented? The penthouse itself, was the lease even paid? "Everything okay?" Derek asked, pouring himself a scotch. "You seem distracted." Jessica forced a smile. "Just wedding stress. Speaking of which, we still haven't set a date." Derek's hesitation was almost imperceptible. "Almost. Actually, we might need to postpone. Some business issues have come up. Nothing serious, just timing." After he went to bed, Jessica sat alone in the dark living room, her reflection staring back from the windows overlooking Lake Michigan. She had left Ethan because she wanted more excitement, more luxury, more life. Now, she was engaged to a man whose empire was built on sand. She thought of Ethan's small apartment, Lily's toys scattered across the living room floor, the ordinary rhythm of bedtime stories and morning routines. She had called it a trap, a cage, but at least it had been real. For a moment, just a moment, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Then she shook her head, banishing the thought. No. Ethan was never going to give her the life she deserved. She just needed to find another way forward. Derek would figure out his business problems. They always did. The following week, Ethan received an email that made him read it 3 times to ensure he wasn't hallucinating. He had been invited to attend the annual Whitmore Holdings charity gala, not as a staff member serving canapes or checking coats, but as a VIP guest. Tom appeared at his desk within minutes of the invitation going out. "Dude. The gala? Do you know how many people would kill for that invite?" Ethan stared at the screen. There must be a mistake. No mistake. Word is, Clare Whitmore personally approved the guest list. Tom raised his eyebrows suggestively. "Something you want to tell me?" Ethan thought of the encounter at the park, the way Claire had looked at him when Lily asked about her father. But that couldn't be the reason, could it? "I need a suit," he said, more to himself than to Tom. A good one that didn't make him look like a man pretending to be something he wasn't. That evening, after putting Lily to bed with her favorite story about a brave rabbit who explored the forest, Ethan stood in his closet, surveying his limited options. His only suit was 5 years old and slightly too tight across the shoulders. He picked up the framed photo on his dresser, his mother, taken 2 years before cancer claimed her. She had been his biggest supporter, the one who encouraged him to keep going after Jessica left. "Mom, "I don't know if I belong there," he said to the photo, a habit he couldn't break. "These are billionaires and senators and people who vacation in Monaco. I'm just a guy who makes sure his kid has matching socks." The next day, Claire asked her assistant to bring Ethan to her office. He arrived looking apprehensive, as if expecting bad news. Claire gestured for him to sit. "I wanted to discuss the gala," she said, keeping her voice professionally neutral. "I understand you received your invitation." "I did. Thank you. Though I'm not entirely sure why I'm on the list." Claire appreciated his directness. Most people in his position would have gushed with false gratitude. "I'd like you to attend as my guest," she said, "not as an employee, as someone I'd like to know better outside the office." Ethan's surprise was evident. "Miss Whitmore, Claire." He took a breath. "Claire, I'm flattered, but I should be honest. I'm not part of your world. I don't know which fork to use for the salad course. I drive a 10-year-old Honda, and my idea of a fancy dinner is ordering extra cheese on the pizza." Claire felt her lips twitch toward a smile. "You're the only person in this building who's never tried to impress me. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Everyone wants something from me. Everyone has an angle. But you just do your job and go home to your daughter. It's refreshing." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "My daughter," he finally said. "She called you a princess after we met at the park. I remember. She also offered to let me borrow you." Now, Ethan smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "She has a generous heart, gets it from her grandmother." That night, after Lily's bath and bedtime story, Ethan mentioned the gala. "There's a big party I have to go to next week for work. It's going to be fancy, with music and people in pretty dresses." Lily's eyes widened. "Like Cinderella?" "Something like that." Lily bounced on her bed. "Is the princess lady going to be there? The one we met at the park?" Ethan tucked the blankets around her. "She's not a princess, Lily, but yes, she'll be there." Miles away, Claire was having a similar conversation with her mother over the phone. "I invited someone to the gala," she admitted. "A man from the company." Margaret's surprise was audible through the phone. "Claire Elizabeth Whitmore. In the 12 years since you took over that company, you have never once brought a date to a corporate function." "He's not a date. He's just Claire," struggled for the right word. "He's different, Mom. He doesn't want anything from me. He turned down a promotion because it would take him away from his daughter too much." "When's the last time you met someone who chose family over money?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "He sounds like someone worth knowing," she finally said. "Just be careful. People aren't always what they seem." But Claire thought of Ethan kneeling to tie Lily's shoelace, laughing with his daughter in the autumn sunshine. Some people, she suspected, were exactly what they seemed, and that was the most remarkable thing about them. The night of the gala arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that made Chicago's skyline sparkle like a jewel box. The Palmer House had been transformed for the event, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across the marble floors. Towering floral arrangements perfuming the air, a 12-piece orchestra playing Gershwin in the corner. Ethan adjusted his tie for the 10th time in the taxi. The Chicago skyline glittered through the window like a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. He had spent more than he should have on a new suit. A deep charcoal that the salesman promised was timelessly elegant. He felt like a fraud, but he had committed to this, and Ethan Cole didn't back out of commitments. His mother had taught him that. "Show up," she used to say, "even when you're scared, especially when you're scared." Claire was waiting near the entrance when he arrived, and his breath caught. She wore a black gown that managed to be both elegant and powerful. Her dark hair swept up to reveal the graceful line of her neck. A single strand of pearls, her grandmother's, though he didn't know that, yet lay against her collarbone. "You clean up well, Mr. Cole," she said, her eyes warm despite her teasing tone. "I'm not sure I belong here," he admitted. "That makes two of us most days." She slipped her hand through his arm. "Stay with me. You belong here more than most of them. Half these people inherited their money and their opinions. You've actually built something real." As they entered the ballroom together, Ethan felt the weight of curious stares. Whispers rippled through the crowd like waves across still water. Who was this man with Clare Whitmore? A new business partner? A secret boyfriend? The speculation was almost loud enough to hear. Across the room, near the champagne fountain, Jessica Cole nearly choked on her drink. She had been working the room with Derek, smiling until her cheeks ached, pretending everything was fine despite knowing his empire was crumbling. Then she spotted her ex-husband, her boring, ordinary, wasn't enough for anyone ex-husband, walking into the most exclusive event in Chicago on the arm of Clare Whitmore. "Is something wrong?" Derek asked, following her gaze. His face paled when he recognized Clare. "That's Clare Whitmore. I've been trying to get a meeting with her for months about the Harbor Point development." He straightened his jacket. This could be my chance to save everything. Jessica barely heard him. She was watching Ethan navigate the room with quiet confidence, watching Clare lean in to whisper something that made him laugh. This wasn't possible. Ethan didn't go to galas. Ethan didn't date billionaires. Ethan stayed home and changed diapers, and was supposed to remain exactly where she had left him safely, mediocre, proving that her choice to leave had been the right one. The collision happened near the bar, as collisions always do. Jessica maneuvered Derek toward Clare's orbit, hoping for a business introduction, but when they approached, she found herself face to face with Ethan for the first time in 4 years. "Ethan?" She arranged her features into an expression of pleasant surprise. "I almost didn't recognize you." "Hello, Jessica." His voice was calm, neutral. He had practiced this moment in his head 1,000 times, but the reality felt almost anticlimactic. She looked the same, beautiful, polished, calculating, like a magazine advertisement for a life he had never wanted. Jessica's eyes flicked to Clare, then back to Ethan. "I see you've moved up in the world. Corporate galas now? Rubbing shoulders with CEOs?" She laughed, the sound brittle as thin ice. "Still playing the devoted single dad, or did you finally get a life?" The words hit their intended target. Ethan felt the old wound throb, the familiar whisper of not enough, never enough. But before he could respond, Clare's hand tightened on his arm, a subtle but unmistakable gesture of solidarity. Derek, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension, thrust out his hand toward Clare. "Miss Whitmore, Derek Holston. I've been hoping to discuss the Harbor Point project with you. My firm has some innovative ideas for the waterfront development that I think you'll find compelling." Clare regarded him with the polite coolness she reserved for people who bored her. "I'll have my team review any proposals you submit through the proper channels." She turned slightly, dismissing him. "Now, if you'll excuse us." "I promised Ethan a dance." As Clare led him toward the dance floor, Ethan glanced back. Jessica stood frozen, her social smile cracking at the edges. Derek was already pulling out his phone, frantically texting someone about the failed introduction. The orchestra shifted into a slow waltz. Clare stepped into Ethan's arms with practiced ease, while he moved with the careful concentration of someone trying not to step on feet. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I should have warned you about Jessica, your ex-wife." "It wasn't a question. I did my research after the park." "Of course you did." He almost smiled. "She's not usually this aggressive. I think she's surprised to see me here. She's surprised to see you anywhere that doesn't fit her narrative." Clare's voice was matter-of-fact. People who leave often need to believe they were right to go. It's uncomfortable when evidence suggests otherwise. The dance continued, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere, on the woman he had once loved, the family he had tried to build, the dreams that had crumbled 4 years ago in a kitchen that still smelled like the dinner he had made, hoping to talk her into staying. Halfway through the evening, Clare took the stage to address the assembled guests. The room fell silent as she spoke about the charity, a foundation supporting single parents pursuing education while raising children. She talked about opportunity, about resilience, about the invisible labor of those who gave everything to their families while still reaching for their own dreams. "I know what it's like to be raised by someone who never gave up," Claire said, her voice clear and strong. "My mother worked 2 jobs to keep us fed after my father left. She sacrificed her own ambitions so I could have mine. Tonight, we honor people like her and like so many others in this room." Her eyes found Ethan in the crowd. "I've met a man recently who embodies everything this foundation stands for. A single father who works harder than anyone I know, who never complains about the hand he's been dealt, who shows up every single day for his daughter with grace and determination. He reminded me why we do this work, why it matters." The spotlight didn't follow her gaze, but somehow everyone knew. Ethan felt his face flush as curious eyes turned toward him. He wanted to disappear into the floor, but he also felt something else, a warmth spreading through his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. After the speech, Jessica intercepted Claire near the bar. Her composure had slipped, alcohol and anger combining into something reckless and dangerous. "I don't know what game you're playing with, Ethan," Jessica said, her voice just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "But you should know what you're getting. He's nobody, a man who chose diapers over dreams. He could have had a real career, could have been something, but he threw it all away to play house." She laughed, the sound harsh and brittle. "You're Clare Whitmore. You could have anyone in this city. Why are you wasting your time on someone who peaked at mediocre?" The conversations nearby had stopped. People were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Claire set down her champagne glass with deliberate calm and turned to face Jessica fully. "I'm going to say this once," Claire said, her voice low but carrying in the sudden silence. "So, I'd recommend you listen carefully." She stepped closer to Jessica, her presence somehow filling the space despite their similar heights. "Ethan Cole is the hardest working person in my company. He consistently delivers excellent work while raising his daughter alone. He does this because someone you decided that freedom was more important than family, that your comfort mattered more than your child." Claire's hand reached out, finding Ethan's arm, pulling him close to her side. He never complained, never made excuses, never asked anyone to feel sorry for him. He just showed up, every single day, and did what needed to be done. That's not mediocrity, that's strength, that's character, that's everything you clearly don't understand. You left him because you thought he wasn't enough. Claire's voice dropped even lower, a blade wrapped in silk. "Look at where he's standing, who he's standing with, the respect he's earned through sheer integrity, and look at you chasing money, clinging to a man whose company is 3 months from bankruptcy." Jessica's face went white. Derek, standing behind her, seemed to shrink into himself. "Oh yes," Claire continued, "I know all about Harbor Point Development's financial situation. It's my business to know these things. So perhaps before you lecture me about wasting my time, you should consider how you've spent yours." She straightened, her hand still resting on Ethan's arm. "You wanted the glamorous life. Well, this is it. These are the people who matter in this city, and they just watched you humiliate yourself trying to tear down the one genuinely good person in this room." Claire paused, letting the words land like stones. "You just proved, in front of everyone who matters, exactly why you never deserved him." The silence stretched for an eternal moment. Nearby, a senator's wife pretended to study her champagne. A hedge fund manager suddenly found his cufflinks fascinating. Everyone had heard, everyone would remember. Then Claire turned, guiding Ethan away from the frozen tableau of his ex-wife and her failing fiancé. Behind them, Jessica's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. She grabbed Derek's arm and pulled him toward the exit, tears smudging her mascara, her social standing in this city evaporating with every step. Ethan didn't speak until Claire led him through a side door onto the hotel's private terrace. The city spread out below them, a carpet of lights against the autumn darkness. Lake Michigan was a black void in the distance, its presence felt rather than seen. "You didn't have to do that," Ethan finally said. His voice was rough with emotion he couldn't quite name. Claire turned to face him, the wind catching a strand of hair that had escaped her careful styling. "Yes, I did. Because someone should have said those things to her 4 years ago. Someone should have made her understand what she threw away." Ethan moved to the terrace railing, gripping the cold stone. "She told me I'd never be enough for anyone. The night she left, I've carried those words for 4 years. Every time Lily asks about her mother, every time I miss a company event for a school play, every time I wonder if I'm doing enough, her voice is there, telling me I'm not." Claire joined him at the railing, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "My father said something similar when he left," she said quietly. "Not in words, in actions. Every birthday he missed, every promise he broke, every time I waited by the window for a car that never came." "How did you get past it?" Ethan asked. The question felt raw, like exposing a wound to air for the first time. "My mother." Claire's voice softened at the memory. "She told me once that some people leave because they can't handle being loved. It's not about what we lack. It's about what they're incapable of receiving. They run from depth because they only know how to swim on the surface." She turned to look at him directly. "You're not enough, Ethan. You're more than most people will ever be. You chose the hard road, the one that required sacrifice and patience and showing up when it wasn't glamorous. Your daughter knows it. Your colleagues know it. I know it." Ethan felt something loosen in his chest, a knot that had been there so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. "What happens now?" he asked. Claire smiled, and it was different from her boardroom smile or her social smile. This was unguarded, almost vulnerable. "Now, you go home and hug your daughter, tell her about the pretty dresses and the music, and maybe, if you're willing, let me take you both to dinner sometime, somewhere with bear-shaped pancakes on the menu." Ethan laughed, the sound surprising him. It felt foreign, like a language he was remembering after years of disuse. "Lily would love that. She's been asking about the princess lady. I'll have to work on my royal wave." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker below. For the first time in 4 years, Ethan felt like the future might hold something other than survival, and Claire felt like the walls she'd built around her heart might finally have a door worth opening. 6 months later, the kitchen in Ethan's apartment smelled like maple syrup and possibility. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting warm squares on the linoleum floor that had seen better days but had never looked more beautiful. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of lazy early spring day that felt like a gift after Chicago's brutal winter. Lily sat at the kitchen table in her pajamas, the ones with the dancing penguins watching with intense concentration as Claire attempted to flip a pancake shaped vaguely like a bear. "It's more like a blob," Lily observed with 6-year-old honesty. Claire laughed, the sound easy and warm. "Your daddy makes them look so simple. I think the bear is plotting against me." Ethan appeared behind Claire, reaching around her to steady the pan. "You have to wait until the bubbles pop. Then flip quick." His chin brushed her shoulder as he guided her hand, and Claire felt the domesticity of the moment wrap around her like a blanket she never wanted to remove. "Perfect," he said as the pancake landed intact, slightly lopsided but recognizable. "See? Practice." Lily bounced in her chair. "Can I put the chocolate chip eyes on?" "Please, please, please." As they assembled breakfast together, Claire pouring juice, Ethan plating the pancakes, Lily carefully placing chocolate chips in face formations, the small kitchen felt full in a way it hadn't for years. "Claire?" Lily's voice was suddenly serious, the way children get when they're about to ask something important. "Yes, sweetheart? Are you going to be my new mommy?" The question hung in the air. Ethan froze, spatula suspended. Claire slowly knelt down to meet Lily's eyes, her heart hammering against her ribs. I'm not trying to replace anyone, Lily. Mommies are special, and that's a big title. She took the little girl's hand. But I want you to know something. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here for you and your daddy for as long as you want me. Every pancake morning, every dance recital, every scraped knee and bad dream, I promise. Lily considered this with the gravity of a philosopher pondering life's great mysteries. Then she nodded. Okay. But you have to learn to make better bears. Daddies are way better. Claire laughed, pulling Lily into a hug. Deal. Above their heads, Ethan blinked rapidly, overcome by a joy so fierce it almost hurt. He had spent 4 years believing he wasn't enough. Now, watching Claire tickle his daughter into giggles, he understood what enough really meant. The three of them ate breakfast together, Lily chattering about a dream involving purple elephants and swimming pools made of jello. Claire asked follow-up questions about the elephants with the same seriousness she brought to board meetings, which made Lily giggle with delight. Ethan and Claire exchanged looks over her head, the kind of looks that held entire conversations, promises, and a future neither had dared to imagine a year ago. Later that day, they walked to the park by Lake Michigan, the same place where fate had sent Lily running into Claire's path 8 months ago. Lily raced ahead, chasing geese with the boundless energy of childhood. Claire's hand found Ethan's, their fingers interlacing like they'd done it 1,000 times before. In a penthouse across the city, Jessica Cole, now just Jessica again, the engagement ring returned, and the relationship dissolved when Derek's company finally collapsed, stood alone by her window. She had scrolled through her phone earlier, seeing photos from Ethan's social media that Claire's PR team had carefully planted. The three of them at a Cubs game, Claire helping Lily build a snowman, Ethan laughing, genuinely laughing, in a way Jessica had never seen during their marriage. She thought about calling, about apologizing, about asking if she could see Lily, but every time she picked up her phone, Jessica remembered Clare Whitmore's words at the gala, cutting through 4 years of denial with surgical precision. You never deserved him. Maybe that was true. Maybe she had been so busy chasing a fantasy that she'd missed the real thing standing right in front of her. Back at the park, Lily had stopped running and turned to wave at her father and Claire. The spring sun caught her hair, turning it golden. "Come on, slowpokes," she yelled. "The ducks are waiting." Claire squeezed Ethan's hand. "She's perfect, you know. She gets that from her grandmother. And her father." They walked toward Lily together, toward the ducks and the lake and the ordinary magic of a Sunday afternoon. Some people spend their whole lives searching for something better, always looking at the horizon, never seeing what's right beside them. And some people are lucky enough to discover that everything they ever wanted was waiting for them all along, patient and true, in the simple moments they almost overlooked. Ethan Cole had stopped looking at the horizon. He had found his home.